and welcome to Mole Mama here on 1-2 Radio. If you're not driving and near your computer or phone, please join us in our private Facebook chat room by going to 12radio.com and clicking on the chat button on the left menu bar. You'll be redirected to our Facebook chat room, and our fabulous producer, Ade, will let you join us there. Please post questions in the chat room, and we'll answer you on the air. And one of the other great reasons to come in there, other than getting to interact with all our other 1-2 Familia members, is that you get to see all the great photos of the food that we're talking about and our guests. And trust me, you're going to want to see these pictures tonight. They're amazing. So once again, welcome to Mole Mama, where every recipe tells a story. And we celebrate home chefs like my beautiful mother, Rose. And we talk about heritage and family recipes and traditional tools like my grandma Magdalena's magical molcajete. And I remind you every week that the secret ingredient to every great recipe is our love. I want to welcome our returning listeners that I see in the chat room right now. I know Elizabeth is here, Carmen is here, Michelle, James, Angel Girl, Kathy, Christine, and others. Thank you so much for joining. And if you're listening in the archives, thank you for doing that as well. Just a quick reminder that if you've made any of my YouTube recipes, like my guacamole or my crunchy tacos or my enchiladas or my Spanish rice or my mole rojo or my chimichangas, to please post photos on Instagram or Facebook. And if you have any questions at all, please reach out. I love to help people make those recipes successful or change them based on dietary needs or just things that they like and don't like. So if you're new to Mole Mama, we are all about driving connection, unity, acceptance, and love across all cultures and generations. So I just want to be very clear that all are welcome here, and we're delighted that you're listening. And from Mother Teresa, spread love everywhere you go and let no one ever come to you without leaving happier. So tonight, as always, we want to leave you a little bit happier and probably craving some sweets. So I'm just warning you, you need to grab a snack now or eat something quickly before we get into our show. And before I introduce our very special guest, I just wanted to share some rather exciting news that I have. I posted a picture of it in the chat room for everyone to see it, but if you've listened or you know a little bit about me, I grew up in Santa Maria, California, where it's all about grilling on oak wood, and there's just something very magical about the flavor of meats and bread when you grill on oak wood. And this last weekend, I got my own special grill, and I am so excited. I'm telling you guys, it's like I got a new car or something. I'm so over the moon, in love with my grill. And I spent the weekend, we cured it because you have to burn it for so many hours to just get it ready. And then on Monday night, I actually cooked some stuff on it. And I've been eating leftover buttered garlic bread every morning for breakfast. So, but anyway, it's you'll be hearing a lot more about my grill and seeing a lot more pictures of the food that I'm going to be experimenting with. So I just wanted to share that that news with you because it's really exciting to me for some reason to have a grill. So anyway, it makes me very, very happy, and I'm sure we're going to have lots of good memories and good fun with that. So I would love to now introduce our very special guest. I have Jamie Swartz on the line with us from Starry Bakery in San Diego, California. She is a co-owner, founder of this very special bakery, and it is vegan and gluten-free as well as nut-free. And so we're going to talk to Jamie now. So do you want to say hi to everyone, Jamie?
Hi, everyone.
And hello, welcome, hola. And is there anyone, before we start talking, because I always forget to do this, is there anybody that you want to give a special shout out to that might be listening?
Oh, goodness. That's a really good question. I feel like this is a trick because if I say a name, I'm going to forget like every other name. I'm just going to say, like, hello to everybody on the call.
That's great. That is nice and safe. Okay. So before we started talking about the journey that got you to this amazing bakery that you're at, why don't you first of all tell us a little about your bakery, and then we'll figure out how you got there.
Of course. Starry is pretty unique. We are a top 10 allergen-free bakery. And what that means is we don't use any gluten, soy, dairy, eggs, tree nuts, peanuts, fish, shellfish, mustard, or sesame in anything that we make. We don't even allow those items in our bakery. We check all of our ingredients to make sure they haven't been contaminated before they come to us. So if you're one of the 30 million Americans who's allergic to one of the things I just said, then we are a completely safe place for you to eat. And that's really important to me.
That is amazing. And if you're in the chat room, you should. We were going to be posting pictures of your sweets, but oh my goodness, do you want to tell our listeners who aren't there about some of the things that you make?
We're pretty proud of our recipes. Everything was developed in-house by us because they just don't exist out there right now. I think some of my favorite things are our fudge brownies, which are spectacular. And I'm pretty sure you have a picture of our pretzel rolls, which are like the best bread in the world. They're like soft and chewy and salty, and they're just like everything you want in a pretzel, but never thought you could get gluten-free. They're fantastic.
That's amazing. And then you have lots of cupcakes. I saw so many pictures of cupcakes.
We got a little crazy with our cupcakes. I'm not going to lie. We started developing the recipes, and then we couldn't stop. We recently moved to a new location, and with our bigger space, we've started doing some really fun flavors. We have a campfire cupcake, which is inspired by s'mores. So it's graham and chocolate cake with marshmallow-flavored frosting. And we do a banana split, so it's banana and strawberry cake with vanilla frosting and then a maraschino cherry on top.
Wow. And then I've also seen pictures of cakes. We can't leave them out. So
the cakes are a new addition. It took us a couple of years to nail them down, but we had a lot of requests from our guests who had young children who hadn't ever been able to have a birthday cake before, and we're not okay with that. So we sat down and we figured it out, and we can make cakes by special order for just about anything you want with any of our batters, and they're pretty fantastic.
Okay, that is pretty amazing. So I think we need to talk about your story, because when I started researching you, I was amazed. So my understanding is that you were in college back east studying something, and then you changed. So why don't we start there about what happened?
Oh gosh, I feel like everyone's like, I went to school and now I do nothing with my degree. I can say I utilize it, though. I went to school back east, and I studied biology and evolutionary anthropology. So I took a lot of science classes, a lot of bio, chem, physics, and then I graduated, and I was looking at grad school, and I realized that I had spent all of my time when I was stressed out studying cooking. And isn't it ridiculous to devote your life to something that's so stressful instead of the thing you do to relieve the stress? So instead of going to grad school, I just completely flipped and went to culinary school. And that was pretty much the most amazing experience ever. And after I finished up culinary school, I was working downtown as a pastry chef in a hotel. And I, out of nowhere, developed an adult onset food allergy to almonds and cashews, and realized that it was impossible to be a pastry chef right now in a commercial kitchen with a nut allergy. I couldn't work with the products anymore. I tried, and I wound up having an allergic reaction in the kitchen. So I reevaluated, talked to my family, who was amazing about it, and with their support, I decided to open up a kitchen that I could work in. And Starry Bakery was born.
That is an amazing story. So when I read that, I had no idea that as an adult you could develop a nut allergy as an adult. I thought that was just something that you were born with.
No, I have to tell you, I had no idea either. I'm embarrassed to admit I knew very little about food allergies. I hadn't really encountered them much before. I didn't have much knowledge of them. And I was in the hospital, and the doctor's like, no, you went into anaphylactic shock. You need to see an allergist. And when I saw an allergist, he's like, this is common. I've been seeing this a lot more often now. And I asked him, Does it go away? Can I do anything for it? I didn't know what I was talking about. And he said, no. Mostly when you're an adult and you develop onset food allergies, they stay with you. And unfortunately, they're experimenting right now. There just aren't any approved treatments for adult onset food allergies, for food allergies. So you like millions of Americans, you learn to live with it.
That is amazing. I had no idea. It's not amazing. It's very scary. And it sounds from your story that it was a scary experience for you and had to change your complete direction, and so inspiring that you decided to open your own kitchen.
Thank you. It was terrifying, but everyone was super supportive, and I think that's so important. I think that really helps.
Now tell me about the name, because there's something special about the name of your bakery as well, correct?
There is something special about the name of my bakery. Once I decided what I was going to do, what I wanted to do, once I started working towards it, I realized I had no idea what to call it. I wanted the right name. It was so important to have a name that made people feel what I felt when I was cooking and when I was eating the food I was making. And so I did what I always do when I have no idea. I went to my mother and she thought about it and she laughed at me a little bit. And then she came up with Starry Lane Bakery, which is actually the name of the street that my sister and I grew up on in Pennsylvania. And I loved it so much because that's where I learned to cook. That's where I learned to love food. That's where we spent holidays with my family. And now whenever I say it, whenever I read it, whenever someone else says it, I get this kind of like warm glow. And I hope that kind of carries over into the whole feeling of the bakery.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that name. So the name of my brand, Mole Mama, is also because of my mother and her mole. So that's for that. So every time I have a similar experience. Every time I say the name, I'm like, oh, my mom and her mole, I loved it. So
it's nice to surround yourself with something like that.
I absolutely agree. And it's so cute. And I hope to make it to your bakery someday because your pictures look so adorable. And, I have experimented a little bit with gluten-free. I had an event where somebody asked me to do mole with gluten-free flour or gluten-free mole. And so I had to do a roux, and I had never really used gluten-free flour before, and it like exploded all over my stove. So I'm really interested to find out, how do you bake with this stuff? Because it just kind of goes crazy. I'm like, what's going on with this flour?
You are not the first person to tell me that story. I've heard it from everybody. The truth is that gluten-free baking is less about baking and more about running a giant science experiment in your kitchen. It's just the truth. It goes bad and it goes wrong. And you have to have a sense of humor about it. I hope you laughed when it exploded.
I had this giant wood spoon and I was just spinning as fast as I can. And I was like, I need a step to step stool to step on to get up higher. I'm like, it was crazy. Yeah, I was laughing. It was like, what do I do?
It's, I know there are a lot of gluten-free flours on the market right now. And there's a lot of gluten-free recipes online right now. And I think what they fail to take into account is exactly what gluten does in a recipe and how you can compensate for not having it. Because I guess I went about it a different way. Because of my science background, when I approach cooking, when I approach baking, I see it as more of a whole set of different elements interacting to form something new. So when I started to do gluten-free baking, first thing I did was I looked at gluten. What is it? What does it do? What's so important about it? Why do we use wheat flour in everything? And I found out that gluten is incredibly complicated, does about 50 different things in your recipes, and there just isn't another flour that will mimic that. So what you have to do is use a ton of other ingredients to mimic exactly what the gluten is doing in every recipe. And since it does something different in every recipe, you have to use different ingredients in every recipe. And that just isn't feasible for everybody. Or so I've been told.
Goodness. Okay, that sounds really complicated. Oh my gosh.
I'd love to say it was easier than that, but it's not.
Yeah, because when I was looking at your photographs of your perfectly formed cupcakes and cake and brown, I'm like, how does that happen? So,
I will say that perfectly formed cupcake and the perfectly formed cakes came after years of disasters that probably make your kitchen look sparkling clean. Like, it does not come easy.
wow. And so, you were talking earlier about where you grew up on Starry Lane in Pennsylvania with your mom and your sister and your family, and great memories that you had. So, who taught you how to cook? Was it your mother?
Yes and no. My mother is a fantastic cook, but she really doesn't like baking. I think it's too finicky for her. So I think, like all children, as I was growing up and, I was cooking in her kitchen, I was learning how to do everything she did, I kind of looked at what she didn't do and was like, I can do that. So I started learning it almost in defiance. And then I found out that my aunt, one of my favorite aunts, my Aunt Anna, was actually a fantastic baker. I had never really thought about it before or talked to her about it. And she started teaching me all of these recipes she does. And she actually had one recipe. I used to call it the kitchen sink cookie because it was oatmeal and chocolate and like everything you could think of in one cookie. And after years of begging, she finally taught it to me. And when we opened the bakery, I actually morphed it into our oatmeal triple chunk cookie. And that's still one of my favorites.
Oh, that's fantastic. So what's the triple chunks? Is that all chocolate? Or what else is it?
It's so much chocolate.
Really?
It's chocolate chips and chocolate chunks and cocoa powder worked right into the dough. So it's like salty and sweet and the oats make it a little crunchy. It's like everything good in the world in one cookie.
Oh my gosh. Okay, but you can't use butter in your cookies. So what are you using, vegetable oil or what? What do you use instead?
You can't use butter. Yeah.
Right.
One of the things I found out is that when you're substituting in one ingredient, like if you were just going dairy-free, you can just use a margarine and you're okay. If you're just going egg-free, there are a bunch of substitutes for that. But once you start pulling out 3/4 of a recipe, then you have to really be careful on how your other ingredients interact. So we do use a product called Earth Balance, which is a fantastic margarine. They make a soy-free version. It's amazing. But it doesn't do everything butter does. And since we don't have the other ingredients that you normally have in baking to stabilize that, we have to kind of fudge it a little bit. And so we use that for that buttery taste and for the fat. But then we sometimes have to add extra moisture to make up for the water content of the butter and other things to stabilize. So it gets a little finicky, but if you're playing around with butter-free baking, I highly recommend the Earth Balance. It's the best one we found yet.
That's great. So you're a scientist. You're definitely your biology major stuff sounds like it's really coming in handy for you.
It's my thing.
That is fantastic. So do you have a specific memory, like a go-to memory of the first time that you, as a child, went, I really love doing this?
I actually do, and there's a picture somewhere in my life that commemorates it, which is fairly embarrassing. But I was about 6 years old, and it was Mother's Day, and I decided to make my mother a cake. And luckily, my aunt was over, and she helped me out. And I'm not saying it was from scratch. I'm pretty sure there was a box of cake mix involved in this cake, and it got baked in a glass dish. And I was really excited to decorate it. So I slathered the whole thing with whipped cream, and then I thought I was being super creative because I was 6. So I got a container of strawberries, and instead of slicing them and making them pretty, because I was 6 and I had no idea what I was doing, there's a picture of me somewhere in front of this glass sheet pan cake slathered in whipped cream with a dozen strawberries just sticking right up out of the cake, just like tall. It's amazing. And I remember being really proud when I gave it to her.
That is fantastic. That is just a really great memory. Yeah, because I have a very specific memory as well of cooking with my mother and helping her make homemade flour tortillas. So That's kind of my thing, but I don't have any pictures. I wish I had a picture of that. That's wonderful. So, it's so interesting because you now have this, you're allergic to nuts, but you've created this bakery that's supporting all different types of food allergies. So was that always the plan, or is that how it evolved?
It wasn't actually the plan. When I first started out, I realized that a nut-free bakery probably wasn't going to go anywhere. It would be safe for me, but there wasn't really a need for that.
Right.
So I started looking into all the other food allergens, and I realized that there were so many people who had things they couldn't eat, but I didn't see how it was possible to make a completely dedicated bakery. It just seemed too out there. So my original plan was going to be just to do a mail order business out of a commercial kitchen with separate areas where I did some dairy-free and some gluten-free and some nut-free. And about 6 months into the process of coming up with this business plan, I realized that was insane. It was never going to fly. The idea of cross-contamination was just horrific. And I scrapped it all, and I said the only way that this could work safely is if we're a completely dedicated facility. And I spent the next 2 years figuring out a way to make it happen.
Okay, I am so sorry. That is my dog. I don't know if she's saying, yay, that's a great idea that you came up with. But it is.
She loves it.
Yeah, she loves it. It's a very smart business idea. Absolutely. And plus, you're able to serve all these different types of clients with all these different, allergens. And that's just amazing that you've done this. So do you have a favorite thing that you make then?
Oh, that's a really good question. I have a favorite thing to make, but then I have a favorite thing to eat, which are for anyone who bakes or cooks, and I feel like everybody who listens to your show bakes and cooks. That's a completely different thing. My favorite thing to make is actually our lemon bars, because the lemon bar filling is so different from a regular lemon curd, but it comes together so amazing, and it's really exact, and you have to pay attention to it, and I appreciate that in a recipe. But my favorite thing to eat is hands down that oatmeal triple chocolate cookie, because it doesn't just taste good, but when I eat it, I feel like I'm eating it with my aunt, and there's nothing better than that.
That's fantastic. Okay, my mom was such a lemon fiend. Oh my gosh. She actually, the last couple of years of her life, she was addicted to lemon-filled donuts. That was her thing. So she couldn't get enough of those. Yeah, she loved lemon. Not from scratch, but she absolutely, that was what she loved the most, I think, was lemon-filled donuts. So I bet she would have loved those lemon bars. But I think I would be with you. I think that triple chunk cookie, oh my goodness, because I'm such a chocolate fan. Wow.
It hits all the marks, I'm telling you.
It sounds very, very good. And I also wanted to ask, so it sounds like do you come up with all the recipes, or do you have help creating your recipes?
It's definitely not all me personally. I have an amazing staff. My general manager, Bobby Joe, has come up with at least half of them, if not more. And all of my kitchen staff contributes to the development of the recipes. But I will say that everything we make has been 100% developed in-house. Our recipes don't come from anywhere else, because no one else's recipes will work for what we do. But I don't think it would be possible for just one person to do them all.
Yeah, because it sounds very complex what you're trying to do. Like I said, my very limited experience with gluten flour. Ooh, I just can't imagine what you're up to. So that's fantastic. But it is great that you have found some great people to support you and help you and are sharing your journey with you. And I have to say that, can we order your stuff online? Do you ship?
We're working on it.
Okay.
The mail order fell through because I couldn't figure out a way to ship my products so they arrived to our customers in amazing shape with enough time to eat them before they went bad. And I'm not at the point where I'm willing to add preservatives to them yet. So we're still working on it, and I promise we are, but we're just not there yet. And I wouldn't want to send anyone at something that wasn't fantastic.
Okay, but if we follow you on Instagram or Facebook, you'll let us know when you start doing that.
Yeah,
we don't live in San Diego. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I can't believe our time is going so quickly. So we're going to take a short break, everyone. Thanks for tuning into Mole Mama here on 1-2 Radio. We'll be back in just a few minutes, so please return with us. This is Diana Silva. My new book, Mole Mama, A Memoir of Love, Cooking, and Loss, is a story of my beautiful mother, Rose. Her family was from Mexico, and she taught me how to make amazing Mexican dishes, like enchiladas, and Spanish rice, and mole, and crunchy tacos, and guacamole, and all different types of salsas. The story focuses on the last 13 months of her life, where she helped me perfect her recipes that had never been written down, while she taste tested from her hospital bed, and I cooked for her from the kitchen. It was the last part of our story together, but there is joy in this story, there is love, and I hope that it consoles you, it helps you connect and remember those that you love. Squeeze them a little harder, keep them a little closer. But oh, the stories of food, and there's even recipes. Go to Amazon.com to check out my new book and search for Mole Mama, a memoir of love, cooking, and loss. Que Dios te bendiga. May God bless you. Welcome back. You're listening to Mole Mama here on 1-2 Radio, where we are changing the way we cook for the world. Please join us in our Facebook chat room by going to 12radio.com and clicking on the chat button. And you can join us in our Facebook group. You might want to come over and join us there if you're not driving right now, because we've been posting photos throughout this first half of the show of our amazing guest, Jamie Swartz, Starry Lane Bakery, and all of her amazing goodies. Oh my gosh, cupcakes, cookies, and so much more. I'm starving right now. I have a sugar fix, I think, coming soon. And so she is here. So welcome back, everyone, and welcome, Jamie. And I also want to give a shout out to some of the folks in the chat room. Melissa's here, Renee, Michelle, James, Carmen, my prima, Angel Girl, Elizabeth, Kathy, Christine, and others. Thank you so much for joining us in the chat room. And one of our guests earlier commented, because Jamie, you and I were talking about you developing your nut allergies as an adult, and one of our guests also developed a shrimp allergy as an adult. And we were talking in the first half of our show as well about how I had no idea that you could develop these food allergies as adults and how scary that is.
It's so much more common than I think most people are aware of. And most of us, if you don't have food allergies, if it's not part of your world, there's no reason for you to think about it or really know much about them. And then as an adult, usually between your early 20s, your mid-30s, if you come down with a deadly allergy to something you normally eat several times a week or every day, it can really throw your whole world into a tailspin. It can be very upsetting.
I could imagine, because I love nuts. I eat almonds almost every single day, and pistachio. Oh, anyway, yes, I could understand. Well, and why don't we talk a little bit more about this whole contamination of kitchens?
Yes, it's actually one of my biggest pet peeves as both a chef and a person with food allergies, is cross-contamination and how important it is and how little care I think most people who own kitchens and don't understand food allergies give to it. And I think the biggest thing to understand there is that having a food allergy and having an allergic reaction isn't the same as getting sick because there's something wrong with your food. So in a kitchen, we spend a lot of time talking about cross-contamination, but what we mean is bacteria or viruses, making sure that everything is sanitized. But with food allergies, you're not getting sick. what's happening is that a protein, a really small microscopic piece of food that you ingest, causes an immune reaction in your body. And since that protein, that piece of food is not alive, dousing it with sanitizer isn't going to kill it. So if a pot or a bowl was used that had peanut butter or almond butter or flour in it, it can go through the dishwasher. And if it has crevices that kept particles of that food in it, even if it went through the dishwasher, high pressure wash, high temp, bleach, it can still contaminate food that gets mixed into it because those particles are still there. And if someone who has a severe food allergy gets even a couple of micrograms of peanuts or dairy, they can go into anaphylactic shock. They can wind up in the hospital. They can even die. And the knowledge of what's so dangerous about that cross-contamination, I don't think is really filtering through to everybody in the culinary world yet.
I had no idea that the microbes couldn't be killed by the dishwasher. You're teaching me so much. I had no idea about that.
It's a common misconception, yeah. Because if something isn't alive to begin with, then you can't kill it. It's right. It's there.
It's a protein. Wow. Okay. And then you were talking in the first half of the show about your ingredients and checking all of your ingredients to make sure they're shellfish free and all. Can you give our listeners some tips about that? Because I know myself, even going in and when I've been asked to make gluten-free, like really reading the label and making sure it has all the proper stamps. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's so important. It's really easy to say, oh, I made this. I'm using peanuts right now because I feel like everybody knows about peanut allergies. It's really easy to say, oh, I made this peanut-free. There are no peanuts in it. I use chocolate and eggs and butter and flour. But what you don't know is that the chocolate that you use was made by a company who also uses peanuts in that same facility where they make their chocolate. And it's in the air vents, and it's on the machinery, and it's on the workers' clothes and their gloves. And that chocolate could be contaminated with peanuts before you even get it. And as long as there aren't peanuts in the product, the FDA doesn't require companies to label it. You may notice labels that say made in a facility or may contain peanuts. That's entirely optional. They're not obligated to do that. So what I do before I eat any unfamiliar brand is I call customer service and I ask them, do you process nuts in your facility? What are your allergen procedures? Can you give me an allergen statement? Can you give me something on company letterhead that says that this product is safe? And if they can't, I don't touch it.
Wow. Yeah, because I know that when I've also been asked to make some vegan dishes, and I was trying to use a broth, and I went to Whole Foods to try to find just a vegan broth. And it was so challenging because come to find out, if you start reading the fine print, is that they're making broths in other places that have bones and meat, and they're processing meat. So I'm like, oh boy. So I gave up and I just made my own broth. So I was like, okay, that's the only way.
Which I'm sure it was better anyway.
Right. But I was like, that's the only way I could be 100% sure, based on the confusing labeling, that I was doing my best to ensure this really was vegan. But I did not know that about the nuts. Bless you. I did. So I did not know that they're not required by the FDA to actually say.
Yeah, that's actually one of the problems we ran into. We make a lot of we call them sub-recipes. They're recipes you need to use before you can make the actual recipe. So things like, you don't think twice about things like rice milk. We use rice milk in a lot of our baking, but everybody knows about Rice Stream. And Rice Stream also makes soy milk and almond milk. And my favorite now is cashew milk. And there isn't actually a commercial brand of rice milk that's safe for us to use. So we make our own. So we have to make that rice milk before we can make any recipe that calls for rice milk. And we do that with about 18 or 20 different products.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Wow. I've got to come and try your stuff because there's so much thought and love and science. So I'm like, oh my. How did you figure that out? Again, just trial and error.
Trial and error. Yeah. I think what most people think of when they're innovating recipes is they take a recipe and they start substituting things in, right? Isn't that what you do? You look at it and you're like, instead of tomatoes, I'm going to try onions and see what happens. Right. That did not work for us. So instead what we did was we went to like the old school cookbooks, like Julia Child, like the very best, most decadent chocolate cake you've ever eaten in your life. We take that recipe and then we break it down into the individual ingredients. And then we say, what does each ingredient do in the recipe? And then we look at the molecular structure of each of those ingredients and figure out, based on the structure of the ingredients we can use, how we can replicate it. And sometimes a 6-ingredient recipe turns into like a 25-ingredient recipe with over 3 days with a million different steps. But in the end, it works.
Wow. I am just so impressed. Yeah, you're definitely a scientist and a baker. And when you were talking earlier about, you're either a baker or more of a cook, I'm definitely a cook. I don't have that kind of patience. No way. No.
I find it very therapeutic.
Yes,
you can immerse yourself in a recipe, and it makes sense. I like it when things make sense.
That's outstanding. I find cooking very therapeutic as well, and I know that I've been on for my day job. I've been on very stressful phone calls in the past or conference calls, and I've found myself chopping onions as a way to keep myself calm on mute. But so I agree. But wow, you're at a different level than me, which is great. So in your bakery shop, what are your best sellers? Can you share some of that information with us?
Yeah. So our traditional best sellers are year-round, our fudge brownies, which are fantastic, our French vanilla cupcakes, because you can't go wrong with a cupcake. Our seasonally in the fall, we make a pumpkin cupcake, which is just out of this world. Pumpkin cupcake with cinnamon frosting, and it'll blow your mind. But right now, we just started making fresh fruit torts, which is a single layer of cake with some of our vanilla buttercream, and then we put fresh fruit on it. And it sounds really simple, and it sounds really easy, but we're kind of ridiculously proud of it because it wasn't until about a month ago that we found a produce supplier that was safe for us to use. Because all of the produce suppliers we contacted, and no one thinks about this, also repackaged nuts in their warehouses where they were storing their fruit.
Oh, my goodness.
And so it was in the air, and it was on the boxes. And when I asked them, they were like, oh, yeah, of course we do it. Like, there was nothing wrong with that. So it wasn't safe for us to bring in fresh produce. And now that we have our hands on it, we're putting it on everything.
Oh, my goodness. So, at the beginning of our show, you mentioned a term about what kind of bakery you are that I had never heard before, and also until I was introduced to you. Can you share that term again with our listeners so that they do have allergens? They can look for these types of bakeries in their own communities if they're not in San Diego?
The allergen-free bakeries?
Yeah, but it was like you were in the 10 allergen-free.
Yeah, absolutely. My apologies. So we're a top 10 allergen-free bakery, and what that means is that the FDA has identified the allergens, the specific foods that most Americans who have food allergies are allergic to. And that doesn't mean that's all of them by any means. You can be allergic to any food, to anything with a protein structure. But it just so happens that 9 out of 10 Americans are allergic to these 10 things mostly. And those things are gluten, soy, dairy, eggs, tree nuts, peanuts, fish, shellfish, mustard, and sesame.
So I think that's an amazing term. I did not know that existed. So again, learned something, some other new thing from you. So thank you for sharing. So if you, so you can't eat ice cream. Do you eat ice cream?
Yes and no. Most people with food allergies will tell you that they take risks, and we all do it. It's because food is such an integral part of our lives. It's everything. It's what you share with friends, with family. It's how you connect with people. And cutting yourself off from everything is really devastating. So we take calculated risks. We look at the menu of a restaurant and we decide whether we feel safe eating there, knowing there's a chance of cross-contamination, but knowing the chance is low. And every time we choose to eat something we didn't make with our own hands, we're taking a risk, but we're taking an informed risk. So normally I make my own ice cream, but every once in a while, I will eat ice cream that I buy from the store. But I usually only eat vanilla because I know that the vanilla is made before they put mix-ins in it. So while there still might be a chance of cross-contamination, it's a lot lower than if I were to get something that had chocolate in it, even though it didn't have nuts.
I had a feeling you were I make my own ice cream type girl. I just knew it. And because where I was going was like, hey, have you ever if you make ice cream, have you ever put any of your brownies in it? So.
I have, and it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, see, that's where I was going. It was like, ooh, that sounds like it might be.
That was the lead-in, yeah.
Yeah, it was the lead-in.
Now looking back.
Yeah, because I absolutely love ice cream. So I'm so hoping that I can always eat dairy because, oh boy, I love it so much.
I love cheese, and I was very scared. I know a lot of people with dairy allergies, and I'm always terrified of that because I really love cheese.
Oh my gosh, I do too. I love cheese so much. So our listeners know that because we've had, I don't know how many shows I've had dedicated entirely to cheese. So
that sounds fantastic. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I grew up on a dairy farm, so my mother used to actually make homemade cheese, like a queso fresco that she would make, and also homemade butter. So
I'm incredibly jealous of you right now.
Well, yeah, it was pretty awesome. And then I live in the Bay Area, and we have Cowgirl Creamery up here. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. But,
I have.
Their cheese. It's just amazing. So, okay. All right. So I know that you're starting to make cakes now. What's the biggest cake? What's the biggest cake you've ever made? Like for how many people? It was gluten-free. I'm just curious.
Our biggest cake right now is a half-sheet cake. It feeds 40 to 45 people. We haven't gotten into layer cakes yet, like multiple tiers, like those big ones you see on the competition, right, because they all use ingredients like fondant and gum paste, things that make them look really pretty and smooth. And we haven't figured out how to, one, find a safe version, or two, make it ourselves. We're still working on it.
Wow. So it sounds like you've been talking about how you call suppliers, you'll find out. So is that, do other people help you do that? Because it sounds like if you're using all these ingredients, that would take a lot of time. Are you the primary one doing the research there?
That's one of the things I'm not willing to relinquish control of. I really feel the need personally to speak with someone at every company who makes every ingredient we make and talk to them and hear what their procedures are and get things in writing. And it's not something I'm comfortable handing off to anyone else because it's such an important part of what we do. I could not in good conscience tell someone that is feeding their infant child with anaphylactic soy allergy that a product is soy-free if I didn't speak to the person who made the ingredients that told me that there was no soy in their facility.
That is wonderful. That is really wonderful.
It does, however, take a lot of time.
Yeah, I would think so. But to me, it says that you're pretty much a badass. So you're going to make sure that everybody's safe. So that is fantastic.
No one said that before, but I'll take it. I like that.
Yeah, no, you are. Definitely. You definitely are. And I love your passion about ensuring that your products are safe for your customers and that you're keeping true to your brand and your commitment. That's outstanding. So as far as, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I was going to say, as much as we love at Starry, we love making innovative food, amazing food that makes everybody happy. Our number one goal and our number one priority has always been to keep everybody who eats our products safe. And that's not something we're ever willing to compromise on for any other reason.
That's outstanding. That is really nice. So I know that you said earlier that we can't get your stuff yet unless we're in San Diego, but you're going to let everybody know once you, that's okay. Once, if we follow you on Instagram, and why don't you tell everybody how we can follow you on Instagram and Facebook? I know Ade's been putting it in the chat room, but for those people not in the chat room.
At Starry Lane Bakery, please. And we're starting a new hashtag. It's hashtag Allergen-Free Magic.
So, I like that.
So eating our stuff. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
My manager came up with that. She's fantastic. So if you're trying our stuff, hashtag Allergen-Free Magic.
Yeah, and if you guys go over to her Instagram, like seriously, be careful because it looks amazing. It really is going to make you want something. It's just a great feed. And, you know, we talked a lot about what you're making for your bakery. What do you make at home?
Oh, yeah. People always ask me that. They're like, so you bake all day. Do you go home and cook?
Yeah.
I'm always like, yes. Yes, I actually do. I make a lot of family recipes. My mother makes the world's most amazing roast chicken, and I'm turning 34. Wow, I'm turning 34. And I still try to replicate it just about once a week, and it still fails short. Like I'm not there yet.
Okay.
And every time I try it, she's like, it's almost there. It's close. Keep going.
Wow. What is in this chicken? Is it just...
I don't know. I think she adds things when I'm not looking.
Oh, she's one of those mothers. I had one of those. I definitely had one of those.
Write everything down. Yeah, she's like, no, this is what's in it. And then I turn around and I think it's different.
Yeah, no, my mom, that was one of the biggest challenges I had with my mother when we would cook together, is that she made these incredible chili beans. And they're like family favorites, really hard to make. And I would leave the room for a minute and I would come back and they'd be a different color. And I'd be like, what'd you put in them? How much did you put? And she would,
My favorite, or a pinch, right?
Yeah, exactly. It needed it. It needed it. And I'm like, yes, but how am I ever going to duplicate it? So unfortunately, when she was really ill for the last 13 months of her life, it was when I was able to perfect her recipes because she could no longer come into the kitchen. So she taste tested, and that's how I was able to finally learn to perfect things, because she did the same thing to me. That was my mom. Always behind me, messing with things and making them better. Yes, but I couldn't learn.
And they're always better, but you can never replicate it.
I know, you can't. And I always encourage people, if they have a family favorite recipe, to videotape that chef, to just have a conversation with them and videotape them, because even if they're telling you what they're doing and you get them talking about, the first time they made this or how long, if you start watching them, they're doing things with their hands that they're not even aware of. And that's how you're actually going to get the secrets. Is if you're actually...
I think I'm going to have to get like a nanny cam. Like one of those teddy bears with a camera. I'm totally doing this now.
Yeah, it works. It really works to videotape them. And then you have the videotape. It's really fun to watch the videotapes later. Okay, so it's the chicken. Is there anything else that you cook at home?
What do I make a lot? I make salmon. Oh, onion soup. I make a really good onion soup. There's something about making soup. It's not just the finished product. It's the whole act of putting together the soup. I think it's really soothing. I make a lot of stress soup.
Wow, I do too. I love soups. I make lots of different soups.
Have you ever made stone soup?
No, I've heard about it, but I haven't made it.
It's a kid's book where they put a stone in a pot of water and everybody brings something to make the soup, and then magically it's soup from a stone. And I loved that when I was a kid. So my mother got a stone and washed it, and we used to just make basically like everything in the kitchen soup. But there was always a stone, so it was stone soup.
Oh, that is such a wonderful tradition. That is so sweet. Well, Jamie, I can't believe that our time has been gone by so quickly. It's been so great chatting with you, and I hope to make it down to San Diego and check out your treats. And I'm probably going to have more than one of those cookies. I'm just warning you now that you're talking about.
We'll set them aside. We'll stock
up. Please do so. But thank you so much, and all the best to you. And my listeners, please follow her on Instagram and Facebook. You won't be disappointed. So thank you for listening to our show tonight, everyone. Many thanks to Ade, our fabulous producer. Remember to add the most important ingredient to every recipe you make, your love. And as my mama always said to me as we said our goodbyes, que Dios te bendiga, may God bless you. Thank you for tuning in to Mole Mama here on 1-2 Radio, where we are changing the way we cook for the world. Have a wonderful evening and a great weekend.